very warm welcome and thank you all for joining us today. We began the day with some insights on current status and likely future of the passenger vehicle industry. And I'm compelled to think on how modestly we began as an industry and are currently in the front of being the automotive manufacturing hub and largest market going forward, especially on the background of rapid urbanization, rising income levels, growing economy, and potentially gaining from the trade wars that are recently going on. While we plan for the next level of growth, the very fundamentals are getting altered by trends such as electrification, you know, connected cars and shared mobility. The entire business models are being revisited. The value chain is getting transformed. We are looking at new entrants into the market. The existing players are revisiting their business models. Many of these trends that we are observing are evolutionary, revolutionary, and disruptive in nature. And all of them coexist and need to be addressed at the same time. So on the background of this, we'd like to understand from the expert panelists that we have today on the opportunities and challenges that these trends present to the industry. Let me begin with Mr. Pankaj Narula and open this panel discussion. Mr. Pankaj, emissions, safety, electrification are largely driven by legislation and not by customer demand. And that changes the acquisition cost and the TCO, especially in the price-sensitive market like India. As a manufacturer, you're caught between the regulations and the customers. How do you see this balancing out and sustaining the growth path? Your thoughts on this?
You see, definitely, as the society evolves, technology has to follow. We have to provide what the market wants and what the requirement there is out there in the open. Yes, regulations are made just to keep the checks and balances, and definitely it does pushes up the cost. Now, in addition to regulation, we do have a responsibility to society because that is our market. So we have to ensure that we are able to give back to the society in terms of the environment and the other factors, whether it is in terms of the water requirement or the air pollution or the even the traffic density on the road as such. So it does push up the cost, but as the volumes do increase, things do start balancing out. And in fact, it's in that context only, I think these regulations which are now being thought of for the future. So there we are talking in terms of what I would call it as a case, which is connected, autonomous, shared, and electric vehicles. And this again is the need which has come because of the regulations which are being put into place. And over a period of time, I think step by step, we will have to achieve those. We will have to find ways of finding the economy of scale. Initially, I do feel that the costs are going to be high, but with the volumes growing, it will definitely, help in bringing it to the general public at large also. So it is a challenge. We have to find ways, but there is no way out.
Thank you. So do you see this as an inflection point for electrification and or alternative fuels, which have always got an importance when Usually the diesel prices go up, the alternative fuels gain importance. But going forward, not only the diesel fuel prices, but also the cost of vehicle, which is likely to increase. Do we see, are we going to miss the performance and the punch that the diesel vehicle would give? And Mr. Brar and Mr. Arun can elaborate on this as well.
Well, when you look at auto industry, it's not a 100-meter dash, neither it is a 2020 match. It's more like a marathon or a test match. Probably a test match is not the right word to use, especially after what's happened in Perth today morning. The challenge today is, I mean, when we look at this industry, I mean, India, first of all, you have to industry over a longer phase, you have to look at it. I think we get influenced by a lot of events which happen in the short run. And then we say either it's a doomsday scenario or it's a great scenario. We've had these ups and downs before. Now coming to a question of alternative fuels, which is there. Yes, the mix between petrol and diesel has changed. We heard a lot about CNG about a few years back, but the proportion of CNG, as we saw in the last presentation, is still limited. We're talking of electric in a big way, but if you go by the electric vehicle figures, the surprising factor is that this year the figures are lower than even last year. And that is in a minuscule minority. So I think when we will move forward to, obviously there'll be a pressure on fuel, but there'll be more of hybrid vehicles probably will come in. And might be possible that certain other fuel alternatives emerge, which is not within our realm of reality or which is not in the further scenario. But having said that, at this point of time, even when we have talk of hybrid, there will be a petrol or diesel part of it. The conventional fuels will still have a role to play over at least the next decade. Electric vehicles, there's a lot of talk, but in terms of infrastructure, owning, customer pull, I don't think we are just ready for it at the moment in terms of full electric. Yes, electric in forms of hybrid. So that's a point. And then we talked of the shared mobility, which you talked of. The challenge today is that we believe that with the entire Ubers and the Olas available, people will stop owning a car, which may be possible for a certain scenario or a certain segment of society. But looking at our penetration levels of passenger vehicles, hardly 22 per thousand, and if you look at developed countries, forget USA of 900, but even Malaysia and Thailand are 250. We have a strong way to go. Our penetrations in the 640 districts of the country is still, most of the districts still very low. So there are headwinds at this point of time, whether in terms of political sentiments, whether in terms of fuel prices, whether in terms of the insurance rates which have gone up, or the general stock market which has crashed. But I believe the fundamentals and the foundation are strong. It will remain. Fuels can change, but the way I see it, there will not be a dramatic change in the next 10 years. So there are trends which are there, we should watch, but I still believe the future is still bright.
Thank you. Maybe, Mr. Harpreet, we had an interesting conversation in the morning where, would you like to elaborate a little more from Nissan's perspective on electrification?
I think the plans are still, I can't share all the plans with you, but just to add to the point, I think Mr. Malhotra covered most of the points on inflection that we were talking about. See, with an investment of 1 trillion rupees, which is going into BS6, I think everybody would like to extract what they have invested into this, right? After having invested, making so much of investment into this space, you can't suddenly switch over to electric and not really extract what you have invested already into this business. So I think it will continue more petrol way, more than diesel, because as Puneet also mentioned, the diesel is slowly losing traction and petrol is gaining traction. And CNG would have gained traction if there was no availability issue. Now, CNG being available only in 13 cities, frankly, there is no way that it can grow beyond that. But you can really see from the market the traction on CNG and customers coming and asking for more and more CNG cars. So I clearly see if that can improve, that can surely go that way. On electric vehicles, while we have plans to launch the new Leaf within this financial year, but of course it is the CBU at this point in time, and you can't really have huge volumes with a CBU product because it's going to be expensive with a huge import duty on top of that. But I think the way forward is surely electric. At what pace it can grow, it purely depends on how much government supports it, how much infrastructure can come into place, and with economies of scale, how much affordable you can make an electric vehicle. Because at the end of the day, the customer is going to look at what is the cost of ownership. So if electric vehicles, even however low it may be, even if we say, let's say for example, it is costing you 10 lakh rupees for a hatchback, and you have a petrol and diesel equivalent cars which is costing you 5 lakh rupees, the customer is going to look at, after how much years of month am I going to really break even? And if he feels that he is not going to break even, there is no way that he can think of even buying an electric vehicle. So I think it's still some way to go, but the impetus from the government in terms of infrastructure will play a big role, and on top of that, the localization from the existing manufacturers.
With what the feel I get is that we are a distant dream away from electrification. So while we may like alternative fuels and electrification happening, we're still a couple of years away. So how do you break this egg and chicken when we are asking the government to set up infrastructure or support maybe